Today is February 8th. It's 1:30 Tuesday, and this is a Prescott City Council study session. We have only one item on the agenda today, so we'll start with a roll call.
Mayor Good.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Here.
Councilwoman Hall. Here. Councilman Montoya.
Here.
Councilman Moore.
Here.
Councilman Sischka.
Here.
And Councilman Tenney.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you very much. So, as I said, we had one item that was pulled off the agenda. So we'll be listening to the presentation on the update of the Center for the Future.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mayor Good. Mayor Pro Tem Rusing, in your new position, congratulations. Council members, it's a pleasure to be with you again. And I think many of you, if not all of you, know me. And today I'd like to tell you a little bit about something that's, I think, very exciting, an innovation center that was launched in many ways right here in 2019. Was here with Frank Ayers, and we got a letter of support. But importantly, in 2020, we got more than a letter of support. We actually got some funding from the city of Prescott. And then just last year, we signed a lease with you folks, and we started really operating on this. So I have some slides, but our mission is to attract technology companies because innovation centers have been shown as economic drivers. And we have one of our big sponsors is the Prescott Chamber of Commerce Foundation, another 501c3. And because of their status, I've been able to apply for grants because most grants say, show me your 3 years of financials. I always say we're a startup helping startups. So we didn't have 3 years of financials, but they helped us deliver that. And you'll see that it has paid off. As we go, the reason to have these technology companies is to assist in growing quality jobs. We have great retail, great tourism, great construction, although construction can be cyclic. Right now, all of them are hitting. But as we know, when things occur, it's nice to have additional legs to stand on. So we have a great board. Started out with me founding it in 2020, and then added Jim Robb, who some of you know. He was a former economic development consultant here at the city. Rosa Sosa is now a cybersecurity specialist at NASA, and she was a graduate of Embry-Riddle. And because of COVID and many other things, she can work remotely right here from Prescott, which is what we hope to see more of to help grow our young people. Mike McCormick, who's here and joined me, he's the CEO of CB Technology, I'm sure you all know. And Veronica Sass is our most recent, and she has great experience with nonprofit, finance, legal. So I said, oh, we got to have her because I really can use that kind of support right in-house. So you may or may not have seen this picture, but this is the demographics of Yavapai County. Looks like a water tower. Prescott Valley look very similar, just scaled down, because this is 250,000 people approximately. And of course, you notice the fact that we look like a retirement community. And our numbers grow a little bit as we get up to the 15 to 20-year-old, and the band widens a little bit, and then right after that, it drops down. So we, through technology and job growth, we'd hope to fatten up that area in the 25-30 range to help support the growth of jobs and technology. So we want to keep this intellectual capital that comes here, is educated here, and then oftentimes departs for other places, which we won't name. Now, innovation centers are not something that we have to make up. They're proven. And in fact, I just got the 2021 report of Plug and Play Technology Center, which is one of the largest and most successful innovation centers, started in 2006, and they now have outlets around the world. But the center joins a lot of others right here in Arizona. Moonshot, which used to be called NACET, the Northern Arizona Center for Economics and Technology, as well as SkySong down in Sedona, in Scottsdale. And they've both had a head start, but they're doing very well and growing, and we know that all around the world and country this is working. I wanted to show you a near peer example. This is Durango, Colorado. They started in 13, so they've got a 7-year head start on us. But in those 7 years, they generated 122 new jobs to the city. They raised $22 million in funds, and they got a return on investment, and 31 companies were accelerated in that community. Well, we're a much better place than that. We're larger, we have greater depth, and we know that we can do even better than that, and we've already got a start on it because we already have companies in place at the center. So I want to tell you about our takeoff in 2021. We got our initial funding, thank you to the city of Prescott, as well as a number of donors. We got our legal, accounting, we got a lease agreement in place last spring, and a ribbon cutting in July where we opened officially business there at 218 and 220 South Marina at the old city annex. We currently have 4 companies in the center, and as I mentioned, I applied for a grant with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it was awarded $60,000 rural development grant, and we're starting to do the training that was associated with that grant. And just this last week, the contract was received, although they announced it in 2021. We got an additional $120,000. It's a 4-year grant called RISE, which stands for Rural Innovation Succeeds Economically. You love the acronyms. Working with St. John's in eastern Arizona on that grant. So we're actually a subcontractor to them on that grant. So this is where we live. You guys have seen it. The sign's not up yet, but I mimicked the sign thanks to Photoshop and put the sign where it's going to be. And we have about 3,500 square feet right now in 218 and 220. And talking with folks, there is the possibility to expand with phase 2 in the 216 building, which is just to the right on this slide, as people start to move out of this facility and into the new bank facility down the street. So these are a couple of the companies that are there. Simple WAN started even before we had a lease because they needed a space. They make and have done a great job because they make a networking system that allows you to not have to share your network with your kids or your spouse while you're working from home. And so the pandemic worked out just great for them, and they pivoted and made a new set of products exactly to go after that market. SEG does a little bit of esoteric work, but they are closely related to things that CP Technology knows about. They do hypersonic fluid flow, and we've all seen and we all know about hypersonic fluid flow. But ballistic missiles, for instance, do that, and we're worried that the Russians have a hypersonic weapon, and so we need to do that. So most of their clients, as you can bet, are in the DoD. CyberCore International is our most recent company that joined us, and they do cybersecurity and physical security, executive security, mostly in the California and some down in Phoenix, some Texas, where some of their big clients are well-named brands, executives, CEOs, and now they have moved to Prescott, where they've taken 3 suites on the top floor of 218, which was just recently refurbished with some paint and carpet, and it looks great. We went and walked through it this weekend, and he's already started moving in to the space. The cyber warfare range is something that is already underway, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm in discussion with these 3 companies. Nuco, they haven't found their real name. You know, it's one of those under wraps names. GSIS is a company that's Arizona-based, but it has employees all around the country. And its headquarters are in Washington, D.C., so a lot of innovation. But I've been working with them to do contracts for the state of Arizona, different agencies. Kingston Business Solutions is a company that provides security services and is a small disadvantaged company, so we'd be very happy to have them join us. So the cyber warfare range got off to a little slow start here. We thought it was going to be further along, but COVID slowed our installation down a little bit. But this spring, we'll be using it in earnest, and in the Q3, we'll be using that, and we'll actually be donating some equipment to St. John's, their innovation center, as an in-kind donation as part of the USDA RISE grant. So phase 3, although it's not there yet, envisions a much larger facility, and perhaps it's going to be out by the airport, but we're putting together an RFP so that we can find land and somebody who'd be interested in developing a 15 to 30,000 square foot building so that we can really attract larger companies and allow some of these companies to grow, because Simple WAN is out of space. They need more manufacturing space, and right now the 2,000 extra feet there at 216 won't really do it. The good news is their growth is a little bit slower than they had anticipated, so we have a little bit of a runway to catch up with them. Now this is just an artist's rendering of what it could look like. This is the 15,000 square foot version, 1 story. 30,000 would be same footprint, but 2 stories, and you wouldn't fill out the 2nd story until you've got people ready to move into it, and you would just have it prepared. And the developers say that that's a cost-effective way to expand and grow. So what I'm seeking, and I know this is just a study session, but what we're seeking to have is additional funding to match our federal grants. They want a 50-50 grant funding. So 50% of the funding has to come from either in-kind, monetary, or other types of funding, but not federal. So I unfortunately can't use the 2nd grant to help with the 1st grant. They won't let that happen. I do also want to update our lease agreement. We got off again to a little slower start than we thought, but I think that should be manageable, and start talking about the possibility of phase 2. And I want to continue working with Ann and John Heine in the economic development. We did an initiative with Heart and Soul Marketing called, and you can see it on PrescottBiz.com, Business Unusual is the tag. And so Mike was in that, I was in that, and a number of others were in it. And what we're looking to get assistance with is keep strengthening this partnership with the city to help meet some of those strategic goals that the city has and that you folks have been working on. So we've got a great board, and they oversee our expenditures, so we won't have any missteps like might have happened recently with another not-for-profit. So we have a great group to be able to watch what's happening, and our new member is an accountant, and she also has a legal experience with not-for-profits. And this shows some of the use of proceeds. What this will mean is, for the first time, this all-volunteer effort will actually have its first part-time employee in 2022. And Rosa Sosa is a member of the Young Professionals, and so she'll be talking to them this week to tell them about some of the opportunities. And I'm hoping to get somebody with less gray hair than I have to really get excited about what this could do and get one of those folks on board part-time. So we're not doing this alone, but we're working with a lot of different organizations around the region. Of course, USDA has provided funding, but it's one of those things that we spend the money and then we have to invoice them. And then sometime in the next 30 to 60 days after they receive the invoice and acknowledge the invoice, they pay you. So if you're a young, small company, that can be difficult to do cash flow. But luckily we do have some donations and other things, so we have a little bit of a runway, but it doesn't last for very long if we don't keep that moving. Working, of course, with the City of Prescott, NACOG, SCORE, Richard Hernandez here from the Yavapai Regional Economic Development Center. Prescott Chamber of Commerce has been really great and supportive, and the Arizona Commerce Authority as well. I'm on the board of NADA, you may or may not know them, the Northern Arizona Technology Alliance, and we'll be having meetings as part of that collaboration. So it takes a village, a big group of people to make sure that this thing is successful. And so with that, I'll just open it up and see if there might be questions or comments.
Well, I'd be happy to start that off. I know I've supported this concept since its inception, and I think it's a terrific and opportunity to really grow this segment of high-tech, low-impact, substantial revenue for the city, for the surrounding parts of the airport where we're attracting brick and mortar development in high technology, including CP Technologies. And we just announced that big FedEx distribution facility that's being constructed as we speak. And we have several other high-tech businesses that are very interested in locating around that area. So being able to connect them with highly skilled cyber internet security professionals, whether they're brand new out of Embry-Riddle or they're now having some experience like Simple One is showing their scaling requirements. I think this is exactly where we were hoping to go, and I think we need to continue to support the development of this program in the city. So with that support statement, I'd be happy to entertain additional comments. So Mayor Pro Tem Rusing.
Thank you. And thank you, John. This is a very exciting concept. Looks like it's getting off the ground. So my question is, the startups themselves, have they been applying for funding separately, like from angel investors and from other venture capital groups with the tech companies like Honeywell, Lockheed, Intel?
Yes, not directly with the companies, although Simple WAN is further along than some of the others. And it has been working not in those particular industries, but in the network industries. So for instance, Verizon, I was going to say Suddenlink, but it's not Suddenlink. Cable used to be Cable One, Sparklight.
CenturyLink?
Sparklight, Century One, Dish Networks. So that's their market. And then SEG, which does the hypersonic, he was formerly with Raytheon. And so Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are the two big companies that they're working with to get additional funding.
Okay. And then I have one more question. Our initial investment was, I believe, $90,000. Was that, how much did we make initially last year?
So it was earmarked for $90,000, but I believe that only part of it came in the form of cash, and a lot of it came in the form of unexpectedly expensive restoration of Building 220.
Okay. Okay. So, and then another 150. So probably about almost $250,000 invested so far. And my next question is, being a capitalist,
Yep.
is there any way that, startups usually can be bought out or IPO? Is there any way we could structure it so we get an ownership interest in some of these
That's right.
startups, so that in return on our investment, so that if something does happen and they hit it big, then the taxpayers will
Benefit.
get something in return?
That's right, and that's exactly the model of plug and play that I think I mentioned earlier. They just announced their 2021 annual report, And of course, they've been around a lot longer, and a couple of their ones that they took a small piece of, just a small piece. One of them was called PayPal. Another one was called Dropbox. And so those are returning the kind of investment. Now, in the case of Scape, which is closer to us rather than comparing us with Silicon Valley, Scape set up funds, and what the fund then was able to do is provide funding to the startups, and then in doing so, they take a piece of the action. And so working with some people here who have experience in venture capital, one of them, Hal Hayden, who some of you may know, is we'll put together a phase one fund, and it would be great to have the city participate in that phase one fund, and that would be a way of leveraging that growth.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Montoya.
John, thanks for the presentation. And I appreciated that you took time to give me a tour of the facility before I was on council. So thank you for that too. You mentioned oversight. I guess my question for you, in light of some recent challenges that other nonprofits have had with oversight, are there any lessons or takeaways that you guys have taken in terms of enhanced oversight or things like dual control in terms of that?
Yeah. For instance, we can't have large expenditures. Anything over $5,000 requires 2 signatures. And every quarter, we present the financials, how we're doing, and we're tracking the money very closely because we don't have very much. And when you're on a budget, it's easy to watch each transaction. We don't have that many. And everything's on QuickBooks. And we use Chute and Hildegard.
Hilgendorf?
Hildendorf, yeah. Actually not very far from your building.
Yeah.
As our accountants, and they have great experience in the not-for-profit. So they also have a person who helps watch quarterly.
So are they providing an independent auditing of your, or is that something that maybe they're not doing now since it doesn't sound like there's a ton of stuff to audit, but at some point in the future, they'll be a little bit more involved in that capacity of it?
Yes, one of the people there actually has an account. I have 5 seats where it's all in the cloud. And so one of the people there can see the transactions that are happening, even though there aren't very many of them right now.
Sure. I appreciate that clarification. And then the other question I had, it sounds like you're looking for $150,000 in additional funding for matching, and that some of that is eligible to be in kind as well as just cash. Is that, am I understanding that correctly, or how does that work?
So the match for the total is 60 plus 120 or 180. Some of that can be in kind, and we've kind of already earmarked some of that in kind. Some of it will be matched by real dollars, and we will be continue to go after other people that are donors and philanthropists. But we don't expect to spend all of this money necessarily in 2022 because we want to make sure that we're prepared as well for 2023. But a good fraction of it will support the growth in this. The next one we're going after is a much more significant grant from the EDA because they want to support rural innovation centers. They call it out by name. And in speaking with the new EDA person here in Arizona, the figure we're looking at is around $5 million. And so that would be the kind of thing that would help us build phase 3.
Okay. Well, John, thanks so much for answering my questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilman Shishka.
Thank you, Mayor. John, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming in. One of my goals has been to youthify Prescott and the surrounding area. And it sounds like we're well on our way with Center for the Future. However, when we think about young people coming in, we're not really restricting them as far as where they can live or where they can shop or anything like that. So my question is, is there any effort to have some of the surrounding communities have any skin in the game?
Yes. Good you should ask, because I just met with the city manager for Prescott Valley, because they're the other major player in the area. And so we're meeting again on Friday. And when I met with Mayor Kell last June, he said, well, let's get our city manager kind of get his feet under him, and then we'll get together. So I'll be presenting to the PV City Council and manager, asking them also to support, because if we look at something out by the airport, that's just as close to Prescott Valley. And if you look at all the houses, I mean, we've all watched it on Glassford and out by 89A. We know that many of these young people are going to want to buy homes over there. And so we have to think of this as a regional thing, much like the airport was a regional thing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Terrific. Any other concerns or comments? Eric, no? Well, thank you, Dr. Haas. I think this is exciting. It's great to see the whole concept ramping up, I say. Not pleasant. Don't want to wrap it up.
No, we don't want to wrap it up. This is an institution.
Right. And with these additional members of your board and the connections with the whole concept of incubators and innovation centers throughout the state, I'm sure you're going to be very successful.
Thank you so
very
much. Thank you for having me.
Mayor, you do have a couple of public comments.
Okay, great.
Ralph Hess.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Okay, so Center for the Future is asking for $150,000 in funding and an amended or updated lease. And I suspect that your city attorney is aware that last year, the Arizona Supreme Court clarified exactly what municipalities must do to make sure that they comply with the Arizona constitutional gift clause when it comes to making economic agreements. In the case from, I think it was last February, Shires versus Carlat, that's SCHIRES v. Carlat, CARLAT, they said that these economic agreements must provide specific and direct deliverables or outcomes that benefit the public. Anticipated benefits or revenues are insufficient, such as bringing in businesses or jobs. That is not going to be valuable consideration for giving $150,000. And I don't know what the terms, of course, are going to be for the updated lease. So the contract terms must be sufficiently specific and enforceable, and the contracts are valued by objective, fair market value of goods or services promised to benefit the public. So in the presentation we've just received, Center for the Future's presentation does not show meeting any of these criteria. So hopefully, when the city makes a presentation, hopefully at another study session, you will address where the funds come from, these funds, the updated lease, and an expert analysis, which is actually recommended by many of the legal experts in this field, to give specific findings on what your action is going to be with regard to providing the additional funding and what the terms of the lease are intended to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph. And I know those are very cogent points that we have to make sure we comply with when the gift clause concerns have risen under numerous requests and asks that have come before the council.
Howard Mechanic.
Mayor and Council, yeah, I'm also concerned about the gift clause, and I'm glad the city is going to consider that. And come up with some type of balance sheet here, and as far as if we're going to be giving 150,000, what's being promised to be delivered in specifics instead of, we'll have an office open, there'll be an employee there, and we'll make a couple phone calls each day or whatever. So I'm concerned about that. I certainly support economic development in the area, and incubators are very good around the country. And I don't have an issue with that. I think it's a good idea to have a business incubator that helps get businesses started, and I appreciate Councilmember Rusing's comment about having part of the action if we're helping entrepreneurs get going. Once they make some money, it'd be good for the public to get some compensation. If they don't make it, we understand that that happens. I started my business almost 50 years ago with $5, and I know it's difficult to get a business going. So it's very good to help businesses do that. I do agree with Judge Hess that recently the direction around the state has changed quite a bit. In a lot of jurisdictions in the past, they're used to be giving away things. They used to, and there's still a lot of jurisdictions still want to see how they can get around the court's rulings. They're used to giving things away, and they don't understand that they need to treat this a little differently now as far as the bookkeeping. Talking about bookkeeping, is the public going to be able to see the bookkeeping? Is this going to be transparent? What the expenses, all the expenses, and all the income for this organization? And I have my question. I have one question. Once a business becomes profitable and somewhat stable, do they move out on their own, or are they still able to get subsidized rent or whatever they're getting? Is there a program to get them started and get them out on their own, or they can continue to get public subsidies? Now, there was one person who was not able to attend this meeting, and she asked me to bring up this other question. Is the City Council aware that the Center for the Future is a for-profit LLC that was registered with the Arizona Secretary of State's office in August of 2020 after James Robb, who was then serving as a paid consultant to the city, recommended that the city partner with his own for-profit organization. I did a little investigation myself, and I do see that the Center of the Future is recorded under the Arizona Corporation Commission as a for-profit. It's a little confusing in the presentation because they're talking about an organization called the Prescott Regional Opportunity Fund, which is a nonprofit. It appears that the nonprofit set up a for-profit organization. The for-profit organization has, it seems like, the same board. And I'm wondering, in addition to that, I'm wondering why this was done, why it is not continuing as a nonprofit. Is the public here going to subsidize a for-profit organization? I have nothing against profit here, but a lot of the other groups around the country that were presented on the screen, my guess is they're all either public agencies or nonprofits. So I think it'd be we need open books, and we need an explanation why this for-profit entity was set up for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mechanic. Do we have any other comments?
That's all, Mayor.
No? Well, then I would think that our study session has concluded here. So I want to thank Dr. Haas for coming and presenting For the members of the board, Mr. Hernandez, Mike McCormick, thank you for showing up, and we will continue to consider the benefits of the PROF organization, and I'm sure we'll have a decision on how the two different entities that Mr. Mechanic brought up have separated. My initial understanding was that initial LLC was set up to just do some foundational work, and now the PROF, which is a 501c3, will be continuing to develop this innovation program. So with that said, I think our study session is adjourned. Thank you.